So to get started, a very warm welcome to our guest of honor today, David Lipsey. David here has an incredible resume, which you can see on screen here. But those of you in the DAM space will have met or seen David in the field at various events throughout the calendar year. David and I connected about 12 months ago when he came on board as a judge for Media Ballet's Customer Award Program. And his founding knowledge in DAM, his brilliance in conveying the magic and potential of the practice of DAM, mixed with his incredible ability to storytell, really captivate me. And I'm really thrilled to have him here today and teaming up with me on this session. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, Brona, I'm delighted to be here. And as we work in a field that kind of knows no horizon, or when it finds one, it just asks, well, what else can we do? Doing that within community, within a collaborative context, and the fact that we're privileged to work in a field where we don't generally need antitrust lawyers to talk to one another, gives us so much opportunity to explore. And in that spirit of exploration and innovation, glad to be here, Brona.
Thank you so much. And you mentioned community, and that's so important to us here at Media Ballet, building the DAM community. Today online, we have customers, we have community members, we have people just eager to learn more about DAM. So you're in a safe space to join us today and for the rest of the week. And we look forward to hearing your insights and engagement in the chat as well. So please don't be shy. I will definitely prompt in there. My first question to the group is, tell us your role, tell us your involvement with DAM. We would love to know that as we are going through today's session so we can really make sure this is as novel and as useful to you as possible. So without further delay, David, I will move on to our slides about the DAM capability model, and off we go.
Terrific. Thanks so much. So we're here today to talk a little bit about DAM leadership, a persistent opportunity, hope for each and every one of you in your careers and in the recognition of your careers wherever you work or whoever you help if you're on the vendor or consulting side. And this presentation keys essentially off of the capability model for digital asset management that we'll be discussing, with some other insights and ideas about DAM leadership tossed in. Brona?
Perfect.
And DAM does not sit in isolation. And each of us get the opportunity, whether with or without an eclipse, to navigate the universe of content around DAM, looking at an automated content supply chain and about content liquidity and enablement in this universe of applications that we typically touch. I freely admit I made DAM the center of the universe. I'm sure that there are others who would make social media or something else the center of the universe, but hey, I'm with DAM as the sun. DAM connects to so many things, to product information systems, and for those of you who join us from the mission and mandate world in galleries, libraries, archives, museums, and performing arts centers, collections information management systems that have rather static kind of background information in a field with a lot of software that holds important base information about objects, sometimes with master data management, almost always with creative operations, and DAM works in great intimacy with that, for various MRM tools that help us to reach whoever we want to reach with all these great assets. In social media, increasingly we see digital asset management connected to ERP systems such as SAP or Microsoft Dynamics or Oracle Financials. And I think the more we attend to that and understand the cost models of an asset, the better conversations we have to get ourselves up into the seats that matter in our organizations. And of course, if we're involved in industries that have packaging, whether that's something to contain food or clothing or to wrap any kind of CPG product, packaging is a frequent handshake partner with DAM. And web content management software, there's rarely does a DAM not interface with that. And then way over to the right there is poor little Pluto, who we kicked out of the universe. And I use the algebraic X to indicate we don't know what's next. And as many of you know from your journeys in this field, this is one of the great challenges and I hope stimulations of working in this field, is that who would have been talking about AI 5 years ago? Maybe a few people, maybe not. And yet here we are with this kind of I don't know what to call it, ground swell, sky swell, universe swell of conversations about artificial intelligence, or as I've heard it recently described and read a great book about co-intelligence, where we're learning to navigate an entirely different thesis about the arrival of infused information about an object or creating an object. So DAM is not an island. It's in and connected to the content universe. And as we look at content liquidity, we're so aware of these many touch points. Assets show up in so many ways. Some of them are so obvious. And I just want to take a brief pause here. This is one of the best exercises that I love to use when somebody say, well, what is digital asset management? And just to kind of pick apart a product box. In this case, it's from General Mills, which had this very fun campaign where there was a kind of a CAD or an AIB, not AI, kind of a CAD B that if you put right glasses on, the right viewer on, that bumblebee would fly around the Cheerios box. And there was an entire connected universe of content about bring back the bees and things that people could mail into, and then a rich bunch of a degree of storytelling and consumer engagement that General Mills, quite an innovative campaign and very successful one, used this packaging, and all these assets were in DAM. And it's a great exercise if you're trying to explain DAM. Just take something like this, cut it into pieces, and ask people to list all the assets. I'm a big fan also of using QR codes to link into smart labels. And in this case, smart labels link to an extraordinary amount of information about General Mills, about the ingredients in this product, about food allergies, about the bees, and all kinds of other fun things. So always remember, sometimes it's just great to have something like this to pull out in a meeting if someone's trying to understand, well, what all goes into DAM, and the many directions that you as the leadership can bring to connect this to packaging, to smart labels and audience engagement, and to rather important things like, UPC codes and things like that. Staying on top is not necessarily an easy thing in our field. The words that I start with there, maturity and sophistication, have kind of an incessant drumbeat of different meanings. Maturity in this field is never done. It's always continual improvement in DAM. What this word has come to mean and encompass in the near 30 years it's been in existence since the original patents were filed has changed so dramatically. And maturity in almost any field, and certainly in ours, can go backwards if you're not vigilant. We've seen that expressed in some rather harsh ways when, during economic recession, companies just lay off the damn team. And in a world of content-driven engagement, digital engagement, if that doesn't cause one to scratch one's head, I don't know what does. But it does happen, and maturity can go backwards. In a way, I think that maturity is going backwards if we hit adoption peaks. We have a version of a ceiling in DAM that's a subject of some research that I'm directing with ANA right now. Like, why does DAM adoption slow down? And it's something that we hope to be sharing a lot of insights to give each of you even more tools to nurture persistent moving towards maturity and greater use. Growth takes sustainability, which means your own professional development. It means your teamwork. It means having continual expression of what's coming from the vendor communities who are spending millions of dollars on product development. And finally, something that we see persistently as both an opportunity and a challenge, DAM rarely ends up where it starts in an organization. This can be a conundrum of the first order of magnitude. If the budget for DAM generally comes from someplace divisionally or departmentally, oftentimes marketing operations, DAM rarely ends up there, particularly if it's well managed, which means that stress fractures can frequently occur where DAM reports. In fact, sometimes they should occur. That's not necessarily an easy thing, but a fact of DAM life that we as the DAM community get to figure out how to manage. that was in everybody's job descriptions, right? Like manage where dam reports. So
The two things you mentioned there that I expect we will get questions about are navigating adoption peaks and then also scaling down within an organization. So my prompt to the chat, if anybody is tackling either of those or is navigating some of these challenges on the screen here, please do let us know. I'm definitely curious to see what you're going through.
So staying on top, as we just said, is a process worthy of regular attention and focus. And anything any of us can do at the conferences, in community weeks and leadership thought gatherings like this from Media Valet, this is one of those kind of paramount prompts that we want to pay a lot of attention to. There are some observations that I've made and with my dear colleague Graham Allen in putting together DAM leadership training that we've done. And we're going to take a few minutes to look at a few of those. We see a way of thinking about DAM leadership, about the roles of many of you who are on our webinar today and gathered in this community week, that the values of product management form a great, almost kind of a metaphor, kind of not, for the foundations of having sustainability and growth. There is someone who works with Brona and Ian who is called a product manager. And Graham and I have long thought about, well, this is a pretty good hat ring to, or a pretty good place to toss our hat in the ring of digital asset management. Because a product manager, whether working with something as extraordinary complex as making software and supporting it, your roles necessitate having a clear understanding of what is the role of DAM, the information architecture and the role of metadata, probably one of the most volatile and critical things that we do. Governance, meaning big governance, like what's next year's budget and shouldn't we be working on that now? Little budget, as in when some piece of street slang or other casual reference information or something on TickTube and UTalk infiltrates into how search engines are performing in looking for products. So we need, baby governance to make sure we keep everything up to date for our e-commerce and discovery operations. Having strong alignment with the creatives who do such remarkable things to express brand or packaging, understanding that technology is stable but has a strategy behind it. And each of you who work in DAM, if for you, both yourself and for your team, that you have a thriving team. There's so many interesting professional opportunities now, and contributing to your own satisfaction and to the talent that you represent and those who work with you represent is so important to success through DAM through time. Part of this product management philosophy, and it is really interesting, by the way, if you're in a meeting with a product manager or product director or VP from a DAM vendor such as Media Valet, it's very interesting to say, well, what are you thinking about what you should be doing 6 months from now or a year from now? How do you get ready to brief the Real Story Group or Gartner or Forrester about your company and about what product management is? And professionals who have this as a career are looking at the kinds of things that are represented here in terms of having a close affinity with what in the world does DAM need to be doing in the coming months, trying to stay ahead of business needs, and thinking internally how dynamic it can be. And this has a lot to do with adoption peaking. Where's the business headed? Where's the commercial product marketplace headed? Understanding the varieties and vagaries of internal ROI trends. And ROI does not just happen once when you sign a software contract. ROI is one of those, we're finding a large correlation between trailing ROI and adoption. And it's one of those things like talking to the executives who sign off on the DAM contract, not forgetting to go back and talk to them a year later, and having always being, I like to say, on the ROI hunt. Gamify it a little bit. It's fascinating. Product management also means implicitly the ability to quickly and with agility change, because it's just a fact of life. It just happens if you choose to work in the field of dam. And we would encourage you as the dam leaders to know, how do you go about adapting dam to new business processes? If there's an acquisition, a deaccession, if you have a new product launch or something like that, being able to describe that process and what the average time and duration and costs are is part of being ready for change management and for growth, and understanding that sustainability can be measured within your own teams, because you only have the capacity to respond to X or Y number of requests coming into the dam team. And this intimately relates to your own staffing needs, your own capacity to manage burnout, the budget that might be necessary for overtime, which affects ROI, and other component facets to being a dam manager and leader, not just in operations. One of the things that I really like about dam, and it can drive, it can drive particularly IT people crazy, as well as sometimes our managers, is that there's lots of things dam can do, and everything that's in that kind of pinkish color across the top there. Yeah, dam can do rights validation and file delivery and search, but it's important to pick out where dam does focus and where it doesn't focus. In this case, if we just picked out media and metadata, we could spend the next hour just talking about the velocity of change and importance in how, in metadata in particular, and in the media incarnations that we're responsible for, which could include how many different kinds of file compressions, video outputs, so on and so forth, in addition to traditional image and graphics management. Making all of this happen means your leader isn't part of your leadership. It means your leadership. We want to know, in looking at those at adoption tail off and adoption nurturing and sustenance, who's advocating for dam in the organization, and who's advocating for you, so that it isn't just always you going someplace. Are you advocating to your peers at other similar title level? Are you looking for those divisions or departments that don't use dam? I had an experience in the past several months at a museum that's headquartered on the Gulf Coast of Florida, where the museum, in the discovery meeting about, well, what's dam going to do? The head of buildings and grounds came in and said, excuse me, can I put our hurricane evacuation videos in there? And I thought, what a great idea. I love that. And I so like that about dam. But implicit in a very serious way in the thoughts on this slide is having an eye to the horizon, an eye to the edge, and always thinking about that seat upstairs, about executive engagement and managing the perception of success. So the discussions about dam is not just, we have a library, in which we still suffer from, or we have, oh yeah, we use that for our creative assets. So much more that dam can do as we attend as product leads to success around an organization. And I've said this, we touched on this before, and I will reinforce it now. Many of you I know personally work as a team of one, and you work very hard to make dam work. Remember that whatever any of us can do at the conferences, in the Rutgers professional program, to help you be part of a feeling that you're a team in a community, that community is here for you. And even in a world of hybrid work or blended work, this is even more of a kind of a personal resilience point of view. But we want you to have that sense that we hope you can draw on whatever operational opportunities there are to have you, even as a team of one, be strong and sustainable, that HR understands that maintaining professional relationships is critical, that the dam team needs ongoing professional development, and One of the most fun teaching moments in the Rutgers program is a contest that we run with each cohort and everyone has to write their plan. When the chief people officer calls up and says, we've just been awarded some money to give away for the development of our different teams, and you're competing for a $10,000 award to spend on your DAM team. What would you do with it? And it's a wonderful exercise to try to focus on the opportunity for ongoing professional training, conference attendance. Just meeting with your peers in the community is a really great thing. And one of the things I learned in teaching that Rutgers class, and one of the cycles that I taught it was the group came up with the idea that they were going to get together and do community social work to help a small nonprofit get DAM. And it may not be DAM at the scale of Media Valet, but there are very small market DAMs that can be remarkably helpful. And they were going to help teach the arc of digital enablement to a small not-for-profit. What a cool CSR thing. What a wonderful thing to do. Very engaging idea. And beyond each of you and your leadership, our stewards, our ambassadors, and our advocates, bring them together, find out their special interests, and have them help you measure success in the impact of DAM on an ongoing basis for that persistence of trailing ROI through the years.
Okay, so we're just moving into the DAM capability model. I popped a question into the chat about asking you, where are you on your DAM journey today? Are you in the advocating for DAM stage, or are you already leveraging a DAM and looking to scale and grow? So please do let us know. Over to you, David.
Thanks. So a few minutes on the DAM capability model. Capability models were invented at Carnegie Mellon by the Software Engineering Institute, and myself and others in 2012 we went to school to learn how to do what were then called maturity models that we call capability models now. This is an open Creative Commons licensed tool that's used worldwide to help measure your digital asset management usage and map your future. So this model was developed. It's a global benchmarking tool. Everything in here is created by us, and I mean that in the broadest sense. It's licensed under Creative Commons, and it's continually updated. On May 16th in Chicago, we have a meeting to add accessibility and digital asset management as the next facet that will be added to the capability model. Also in May, we'll be publishing an entire baby model just on DAM and AI. A capability model in DAM or anywhere else is designed to give you the opportunity for ongoing self-assessment. It helps you to bring together a DAM sensitized community in your organization, to create a shared vision. It also gives you a common vocabulary. And sometimes just getting that semantic consensus can be so helpful in accelerating the tenacity and stickiness of DAM around an organization. Intentionally, it gives you the opportunity as a group to map your current place on the DAM journey. And then there's quite a deliberate structure with 11 steps, hence our title today, for training and collaboration and growth in that roadmap towards ongoing success. The capability model, we can go on to the next slide, Brona, covers 4 categories: organization, information, systems and processes, and media valet. Brona, would you like to you can plan on just distributing a copy of the model itself. So nobody worry about if you don't have a photographic memory for this. We'll send out a copy of the model. It is absolutely free to use. This is yours. It's ours. It's our communities. And it grows directly and explicitly from the knowledge that we learn from doing DAM every day, whether we're practitioners or consultants or industry leaders or vendors. That's the richness of information this is built from. And these 4 categories, as you see on the next slide, are broken out into what we call dimensions or facets. And this is just everyday life from DAM. We've got we organize the capacity to self-assess across all of these various dimensions. We'll just take a look at a couple of them because sadly they are impossible to memorize. A little too detailed, but these are very common words to all of us. And this is a benchmarking tool. It's dynamic. This is like a software version of when you would stand next to the closet in your room and maybe mom or dad would put a little pencil line about how tall were you. This is like a dynamic version of that, to go stand in the closet and say, how am I in the closet wall? How am I doing in my DAM? We just added asset lifecycle management late last year, which is part of processes. And let's dive into a couple of these and see how this works. Capability models are designed, and this is an old slide, but I really like the thinking that this woman did in helping to conceptualize capability maturity, the use of capability maturity from the Capability Maturity Modeling Institute. It's very process-centric. And you may well find around your organization, if you're Six Sigma, many times you'll find IT colleagues who've actually been through, I'm using the dated word here, maturity levels, because we don't use that word today in talking about these. But this is such a helpful kind of set of harmonics about, oh, okay, where do we start? Yeah, okay, processes are characterized level 2, but pretty reactive, all the way up to stage 5, which is intentionally written to only be process improvement. It's not a state that one ends up at. It's a way of working that one ends up at. So we've included this to give you another kind of reference point or analogous set of language about how these benchmarking tools work. And here's an example of one. So let's pay particular attention. Here we've got organization, we see strategic alignment, technical, talent, which I always want to put in great big letters. And across the top, this is what a benchmarking tool does. It says, where are we? Are we at initial, emerging, standardizing, operationalizing, or optimizing? And part of the art of using this, if you have the chance, and I think if we go to the next slide, Bruno, we've got one, we kind of made this a little bigger. We all start somewhere. And if you're working through this, I would say use these with a certified trainer. This is a sophisticated training tool to use, and it needs to be delivered in a very non-judgmental and accepting way, because many of us start with DAM or we go to a new department and they're at stage 1, they're at initial, and nobody wants to feel bad being at stage 1. It's a fact-based observation of where are we today. So those 5 stages across the top is our mapping process. And we need the mapping to be a positive, non-judgmental, and affirming experience. Everybody starts somewhere. And back in the very opening slide, this can go backwards. These don't turn into like, okay, that's permanent cement. This level of capability can dissolve if there's a leadership change or a key partner in creative operations gets a new job someplace. So we always want to be aware of using this as a mapping tool, that it doesn't stop. And as one more reminder, what we read in optimizing, DAM's value is understood at the highest meaningful executive level. DAM's strategy anticipates organizational direction. The language in that is extremely intentional. That doesn't happen once. It's a process, self-process, and kind of sort of for all of us who studied humanistic psychology and studied Maslow, this is that process of self-actualization. It doesn't stop. So when we run workshops, we don't really expect to ever see stage 5, but to have an understanding that that's the ongoing process map of what we hope to see. And I thought I'd include just one more example. There are a lot of these, and it's way too dense visually to memorize or to go through all of these. But our friend metadata, the thing we always hope if we're walking along the shore, We find the genie lamp, we run the genie lamp, and what pops out? Metadata. And we keep hoping to find that genie lamp, and we keep having different words for it, like natural language processing or artificial intelligence or semantic inferential tools, and so on and so forth. But regardless of what is helping to inject meaning and discoverability, we can start with little metadata beyond file name. We can have asset tagging within work groups. And then I'll just stop briefly. Standardizing metadata schema and taxonomy designed and implemented within the DAM using industry compliance and regulatory standards. So going through this, while we're just spending a little bit of time together, this mapping exercise for all those dimensions can take an entire afternoon. It's not a checklist. It's a designed as a, and remember this more subtle intentionalities of this, which is to create common vocabulary, to create a map of where we are today, and to kind of bond an organization around the capabilities of DAM. So when we go to use this, here's what we do. First of all, we remember with the next slide that this was designed to be an action planning research model. There's a lot of academic background in this and how it was designed, that it is first and foremost a mapping tool, but it's to bring together the people, the platforms, practices, and partnerships. I really like that word, or those words, I mean, to understand how do I accelerate DAM's growth once I measure it. So we start with mapping, and then we're going to move into the last part of our presentation here. And in looking at the key steps to do action planning research with this, there are 11 steps that we're going to talk about just briefly as the reference points for how to put this to work. So where do we start? Well, we need to have we need to first review that we have the organization's capabilities that are in place. So we have people and we have DAM software. And we remember that the core atomic element of DAM is the binary and the metadata. And that's the basic digital object that we're working with here. And it can be parsed. Binaries can be valued differently than the metadata. And metadata, of course, takes a persistence of attention as social norms change and so on and so forth. Some of the aspects of the capability model pertain more exclusively just to systems, and finally, just to the work processes that we do for workflow within a DAM, tied to a DAM, but repeatable processes. And the first thing we do okay, David, what's next with this thing is we go through an exercise, even as we get ready to do this step here, and say, all right, we're going to take a morning and we're going to look at the next 6 months. We're going to go through all those things that David listed out that are in the model. We're going to pick 2 that we're going to work on. And this is, I don't want anyone to think anything other than this is real work. It can take a day to go through just 2 of these. So we would go through some kind of facilitated exercise to say, all right, out of all those things that we looked at, what are the 2 that are going to most directly impact productive use of DAM in my organization? I just picked out metadata here because it's easy and almost everybody picks out metadata. And we've done our mapping exercise. We need to move from level 2 to level 3. So the next question and we write a statement. As a result of moving from level 2 to level 3, my organization will be able to fill in the blank. That's where we start to create common bond and common direction. And from a change management and an organizational dialectic point of view, this is a great step towards gathering energy, gathering belief, gathering motivation. And then we ask the question, it's the second step, who's going to be impacted by this? Is it the web team, the social media team? Is it if I'm involved in galleries and libraries, archives, museums, performing arts center? Am I helping my development office so that data is increasingly not left on the table? So when I'm meeting with donors, I'm better able to go have at my fingertips. Where is a painting? What's its condition? How many times was it visited on LinkedIn? Did I get any revenue from making postcards and earrings from something in my holdings? So who's impacted by this desired growth? What workflows will change? Sometimes the answer is none. Other times the answer is pretty radical. And it's very important to be able to clearly state, if I make this change in DAM, what workflows are going to change. And am I impacting internal operations? Do I have an agency of record that I'm going to be impacting by this change in how DAM is working and making DAM work better? Do I have partners internally because we send all of this over to the packaging software, and I need to give them the heads up that we're going to be changing something in DAM? Sometimes we have to spend money to move from stage X to stage Y. So are there software or hardware purchases, or is any kind of customer programming required for this? We should say custom programming there. At some point we'll fix that in that slide, I know. So, and do I have what I have to figure out the budget. Do I have any outlay costs, like to do something with a new API or something like that? And do I need any consulting help here? Do I need a taxonomy expert who's going to come in? Do I need to have staff augmentation from one of the wonderful managed services vendors like Stax or Allied Vaughn or Aldus who help out because we're doing this change over here, or we just bought a company, we're bringing in all those brand assets. So I need to know, are there any staffing and personnel costs to this? And one of my favorite facets to making the model work, who has to say yes? Usually that's like a little tiny number of people. And then who all can say no? Usually that's a big long list of people. And identifying that in advance is so critical to accelerating the opportunity to make affirmative change based on the self-reflection in mapping that the model has led to. Critical to this, and it goes back to the very first step, as a result of moving to stage 2 to stage 3 in metadata, my organization will be able to, the next thing that we do, and this can take real time, is we design the report that's going to measure that. And I believe in this in terms of how do we accelerate and beat down that adoption tail off. One of the ways is co-designing a report with a new group coming on to DAM to measure change in, say, June of 2025. Now that DAM is operating over here, say in customer service or trade show operations or buildings and grounds, how do I measure that change? And we actually go through when we're doing the capability model workshop and picking a couple of things out, and we design the reports. And that builds up, since these are evergreen documents, they build up a wonderful story. And next up, and the final steps in this are calculating the ROI. And I've long been an advocate to think deeply about what the I means in ROI. And of course, ROI means the very first one that we'll call up here. That's the very traditional, what's the return on investment? I am no longer going to have to pay this amount of overtime. I'm going to stop commissioning the same photo twice because I could find them. We're going to stop having to pay fines for rights violations because we're going to tie two systems together, and DAM will always be able to go retrieve an invalid asset. So great, traditional ROI. Don't get trapped in trying to figure out exactly how many months this might happen in, especially if you're just starting DAM. But core to the conversation, is there going to be an ROI on this? And the absence of the yes answer to that doesn't mean not to do it. I think that was terrible in English, but it meant proceed anyways, even if you're not doing large cost savings. And some of that is because of the next ROI, which is what's the impact on this? This is particularly important for those of you who work and measure life by people that are served, by charities that are offered, by visitors to museum, by the special moment of going to a Philharmonic performance, where we seek mission and mandate as our measure and not profit and loss. And by looking at impact, we completely change the lens of the capability model. And for those of you who do work in not-for-profit, governmental, charitable service missions, religious organizations, or in cultural heritage, being able to provision the answer to this question, what's the impact if we make this change? For those of you in profit-making companies, this is equally valid. Look at the company's 2024 business goals. And I always want to see, when I'm looking at a DAM business case write-up, a direct correlation between what DAM is going to do and the highest level, most abstract goals that a company has in its behaviors and operations. Maybe some of it is ESG driven. Maybe some of it is reducing the use of single-use resources. Whatever that might be, I want to see DAM tied into business goals, because I want each of you in those big governance meetings to be recognized as understanding the context for DAM. And finally, sometimes we get really new data out of the DAM system. What data will we gain that betters us if we do make this change? And the intention there is to look at something called return on information, or infonomics, which is a body of thought that Gartner started. And it's an interesting way to look at, well, gee, what data do I have in DAM? I didn't buy DAM to have data, but I've got data in DAM. And what do I have in there that I could really use? And if we do all those things, hopefully they help us be in touch with these reminders that we are looking at a way to maturing our DAM operations because of deepened capabilities, that this is continuous improvement. That first mapping that you do, don't be disheartened if there's a bunch of ones and twos. I've been in some of the biggest companies in this country and in Canada, and some of the largest cultural heritage operations. There's plenty of ones and twos. It's so natural, because the discipline that digital requires, the opportunity for looking at heterogeneous digital engagement and its meanings, puts such a continually different lens on where am I and where do I want to go? And it's part of this tool is designed to help you make that journey. And in the ever delight of using digital asset management, I always really love thinking about DAM is like a big piece of silly putty, and what it means at company A or museum A or at a charitable organization. When we roll out the DAM, the silly putty that comes back, it's different from place to place to place. Part of the art of leadership in this for all of us is being able to talk with management and our peers that this is not a once and done. We don't just put it in and it's a static done application. It's very kinetic. It's got this kind of internal propulsion machine that keeps going and going and going. And we're here to put that in service of the mission and mandates of those that we work with, those who we work for, and those who we serve. And against the idea that make that silly putty stretch, thanks for the chance to share some thoughts today. Brona, over to you.
Thank you so much, David. I think we can all agree online here. There are a ton of gems in that presentation and a lot to digest. So just a reminder, this recording and the deck and the capability model will be shared with you so that you can take time to digest it and go through each of those facets and then dig into the model itself for the bigger expansive view of what is covered. We are going to push a poll live now. So while that is happening, I am going to do my duty and remind everybody here about DAM Week happening this week. As mentioned, today is the first session, and we will have more today and for the days to come for the rest of the week. We have amazing speakers joining us on this, like you've just heard from David Lipsey, and we have other DAM owners and users speaking from the brands that you see on screen here. So please do take a look at the agenda again if you have not. If you're looking on where can I find the landing page for this, go to mediavalet.com. Very much at the very top bar there of our website, you will see the link into the landing page, and you can take a look and sign up for anything that is useful for you. So I'll just give everybody a second there to complete the model. Not the, well, the capability model poll, let's say. We're not going to be the model in 2 seconds. But I do want to do a prompt again for questions. I think I've jotted down several here from myself that I would love to ask David, but I just want to have another little quick look at the chat here. And okay, I see a couple have come through. I think the first question, the obvious one, is where to from here? So for those online, you're either a DAM owner, a DAM user, or a core marketing practitioner that is responsible for DAM. Where do we go from here after getting the initial overview? And I'm going to scoot back to our DAM capability model slide just while we have this discussion. So David, over to you for that. Where to next?
Sure. Well, I think there is a point in time conversation or question that comes back to that. It's always great just to get a copy of the model, which Media Valet helps to co-sponsor, and to download the current model. It does change. And just do the mapping exercise. Remember, though, it's not a checklist, and it's not designed to be used by yourself. One of the things that I would say where to go to next is ask some people around the organization if they've ever been through a maturity model or a capability model. And I have been so surprised time and time again to meet IT colleagues who say, "Oh yeah, we use those models all the time." Just it's everyday fact of life. And that gathering that kind of allegiance and alliance towards using objectified industry benchmarking tools is a great step on where to go to next.
Amazing. And something you mentioned a few times in the conversation, and somebody brought it up here, was DAM maturity and how it can go forward and backwards. And, you know, I'm going to add on to their question when we've heard some amazing speakers, and primarily at the Henry Stewart conferences that we've been at, talk about their journey in DAM. And, you know, from your connections in the industry, from your conversations with ongoing DAM practitioners, can you share any best approaches that you've come across about navigating that fluid status of DAM, and any tactics that people are using that really stood out to you as interesting and smart?
So I think a few different thoughts. One is something we mentioned earlier about the persistence of ROI, whether it's financially centric, impact centric, or information centric, and to try to be journaling where there are opportunities that you become aware of during the year. Oh, you know, it just struck me, or I just learned that we got in hot water because we just got informed that somebody used an asset that, while it's marked restricted in DAM, that photographer stuff got used and we just had to pay $10,000 fine or something like that. So I think journaling opportunities for persistent ROI, or if you find like, wow, the DAM system, we just ran a report and we just learned where all of our agencies are that use our assets or something like that. I think that's one part of the answer. Another is to map where DAM is used in an organization. And I actually do this with an org chart. It's really interesting to take an org chart and lay it out, whether it's customer service, creative marketing, trade show, packaging. We do the same thing by analogy if it's in museum visitor services, educational services, collections management, publishing, so on and so forth. Go through the divisions and do almost, it's kind of like a version of a word cloud, Brona, around like big DAM, you know, little DAM usage, and then think, all right, where else is there political and operational value if I bring knowledge to DAM and find an ambassador, a steward, a possibly interested party? I think that's a second approach that can be used repeatedly.
Yeah, I think they're really good tidbits there. And I know, you know, so many people in the industry are going through the same thing. So to David's point earlier about community, this is really where you can lean in and learn from others and ask them for help within your organization, beyond your organization, on how they navigate these things. And something that came up a lot was adoption. But something that I'm thinking about is, can you give us a couple of examples on how you might, or scenarios in which you'd use this? So whether you're driving growth, driving adoption, any other scenarios that you've seen amazing organizations leverage the DAM capability model for.
In terms of persistence of adoption or accelerating adoption?
Yeah, or maybe there's some other change that they're trying to drive. What are the examples that people have used the DAM capability model to do?
So here's three or four. One of my favorites is someone who was getting her green belt on going towards Six Sigma, and she went to departments that were not using DAM and essentially asked them to be her guinea pigs. And she used the capability model to as both towards her green belt certification, but also to help that onboarding department come into using DAM. It was really clever. And they had to vote on the department. New users to DAM had to vote on which things they thought would be most important, and then go through kind of a light self-assessment. That was clever and also professionally impactful for as a way of accelerated adoption. I think a second way is to look at the where DAM is widely used, but seems to by looking at the reporting that you can get, where the selects that come out of the download seems to be very stable or tailing off, and then wondering, okay, is there something we can do to tying search to user profile, for example, which a lot of systems can do? What can I do if I see that the usage is either stable or tailing off, and trying to get that at a foreclosure state rather than oh shoot, they're not using this anymore state. Uh, if you work in a regulated industry, whether it's food or pharma or cosmetics, where there's a lot of peephole access to the workflows, I always encourage you I was encouraged in that situation, and it applies generally, try to meet with legal counsel and say, have we been vulnerable through a digital infraction in the past year? Because many times that happens completely out of view of the DAM team. I mean, unless you get in hot water because somebody did something really overtly wrong. But that annual meeting and setting that expectation, that's the phase 2 commit here, is to say to council once a year from a governance and risk mitigation point of view, we're going to meet with you. And we want to know, is there anything that digital discipline, when we look at content liquidity, that we could have done that would have prevented an infraction? And this, you can invite the records management team to that meeting. And that's, I think the fourth thing I would probably say is to do a risk audit, run a disaster recovery exercise, file a claim, meet with your insurance agent and file a claim, a pretend claim, we hope, so that if physical assets are lost and have to be recovered, does your insurance policy cover metadata recovery or just the restoration of objects that have to be restored? And asking for that meeting with the risk officer, look at the insurance that covers your DAM operations. What does it cover? Has there ever been a claim filed? What other claims have they seen? And these are very unexpected questions, but hopefully they help to amplify and express out diversity of thinking about that we have so many digital touch points. We have to wear these kind of bumblebee eyeglasses today to know where to focus. And if you look across what I just said, legal CFO in terms of ROI, legal counsel, risk management, IT in terms of disaster recovery. This is subtle coaching to say, get the non-traditional, many times non-traditional partners involved in this, not just marketing ops.
Yeah. I think, that's exactly it. And I think for people that are new to DAM online too, something that comes to mind is the scope, right? I think we'll hope if you're new to DAM, we haven't terrified you today either with DAM can start and grow at your own pace, but this is the potential of DAM. So it starts often as a nugget in marketing, it grows, it provides value, it has impact, maybe even that ROI as well. And then it goes from there, because this is really organizational change as well. And that's the true impact that DAM can have. So in terms of how to use this model, it can be everything from driving adoption within your own team of DAM to maybe driving growth of DAM across your organization, and then also leveraging it for these, highly important scenarios that David just covered on how to actually use the model to troubleshoot and to prevent some bigger picture issues that could happen. So I think, to summarize, it is highly flexible. It is adaptive to what you need it to be. And as a reminder, we will send it out with the recording. And this is your introduction to the DAM capability model. As a final wrap-up question, David, for anybody who has further interest in the DAM capability model, where should they be going for a deep dive and community learnings on it?
Well, a couple of different places. One is we keep the model is housed at the Center for Advanced Studies in Digital Asset Management, which is on a lot of the footers at CAS, so info@casdam.com. So that's where whatever the most current model is, that's where it's published, and it's licensed under Creative Commons, so it's available free with no restrictions other than citation and typical Creative Commons licensing covenants for your use and your sharing. That's a good spot. Henry Stewart has been very gracious in allowing us to have a pre-conference tutorial, which Christina Gibbs and I will be leading the day before the conference in New York City in October. And that will happen again in LA next March. So that's a good spot. We love those tutorials. They're so fun, they're intimate, and they're very intensive. I think also, this may sound a little silly, but one of the things that I believe in helping adoption is find out who the other DAM managers are where you live. I mean, LinkedIn is like so on this, but whatever we can do to help, if you're working hybrid or you're working remotely, there's DAM going on in the darndest places. Someone who we had the privilege of meeting in the Rutgers program, who was a public school librarian in Lincoln, Nebraska, works remotely, doesn't travel, that the corporation doesn't bring her to meetings. But so we started thinking, well, who else is doing DAM in Lincoln, Nebraska? And have a coffee, have a lunch, have a community thing. It's something that Media of LA sponsors, and many of you know that wherever I travel, I'm notorious for trying to pull together community events so that we get to meet each other and spend time and have that affirmation. So
absolutely. Well, a final reminder on community. Your community are joining us online for DAM Week this week. So take a look at the agenda if you've not yet signed up for more sessions. And, without further ado, we will leave you here today. I want to make sure we are timely and honorable of your time with us this morning and this afternoon. So thank you very much, David, for your insights and for joining us in presenting the DAM capability model today. And thank you all for joining us online as well. We are thrilled to have you with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
take care, Brona. Always a treat. Talk soon. Bye now.
Bye.